call upon the Managing Director of InnoServe Group and my dear friend, only for last 20 years, Mr. Rahul Jain. Please grace the stage, sir.
It's a great pleasure to welcome you all today to the second edition of the CSR Summit. Just 1.5, almost like 2 months ago when we met in Delhi, we saw that this initiative of bringing together change makers is a very noble thing. It not only makes me meet a lot of who's who out there, but I think it's about, bringing people who create the impact, build the change, and is helping, the future to look better. That being said, a lot of thought process has gone in putting together today's show, and we believe that we all will only emerge learned and empowered, at the end of the day. As we know that businesses' role in society is constantly evolving, and no longer companies seen merely as, profit-generating entities. They are now recognized as agents of positive change. This paradigm shift has been instrumental in fostering a new wave of hope and transformation across various sectors. So, what's actually causing this transformative journey has been one of our focal point to craft today's event. Some of the things that we realized are, taking center stage is the growing shift in mindset. More and more companies are becoming sensitive to their societal and environmental responsibilities. The transparency is actually growing, and people are feeling very comfortable about sharing how are they contributing to the cause of the goodness. The same goes to the organizations. Sustainability is taking the center stage. And companies are really conscious about reducing their carbon footprint, conserving resources, integrating eco-friendly practices into their operations. More collaboration is in place. All different entities are coming together in various manners. Technology is playing phenomenal role in bringing people together, organizations together, recognizing opportunities, collating resources, building opportunities. And there is a higher thrust on bringing rural, empowerment. The communities in the rural sector are actually gaining more access to resources. And there's sensitivity toward supporting vulnerable population. Women empowerment is also a major thematic. And healthcare research is progressing in the way we can make it more and more accessible. So all this are the good side of, how we are coming together as corporate CSR. There are certainly hurdles in front of us, and we definitely would like our speakers to kind of, focus on those areas as well. Some of them are, naturally, there is a misrepresentation that happens in CSR, when companies try to show more than what they actually do. So I think that needs to be somewhere, dealt with. There is a deep-rooted disparity where, economic imbalance need to be seen. I think, that's also another, concern which is a growing one. The understanding of CSR itself should, take center stage, that how this can become more and more, interesting and actionable, to be honest. And what kind of global needs exist. I think UN has done phenomenal, focal point has been brought through the SDGs. In fact, the SDG goals need to be brought in more in center. The reporting, can we have more uniformity in it, in the way, everybody can be given a template so that for assessors it becomes easier. How do we actually build more cross-border collaboration, access to funds, navigating through diverse regulations, etc. So these are some hurdles I think our industry is facing, and more sensitivity needs to be brought up here. So we face issues like greenwashing, where some companies falsely claim CSR efforts for image building. The complexity of societal and environmental issues required us to go behind temporary solutions and address the root cause of problems. So today's summit, I think, will look at all different aspects of how CSR can actually bring the required change, how we can be more and more effective. And that being said, let me welcome you once again to the CSR Summit 2.0. And I wish you success of the event, and I believe we all, get a lot of knowledge and learnings here today. Thank you so much.
So without much ado, I would like to call upon Dr. Sandeep Pachpande, Chairman, ASM Group of Institutions, to address this August gathering.
A very good morning to everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all on this SMX CSR Change Summit 2.0. It's an honor to be present here amongst you all for a grand celebration of social responsibility and sustainable change right here in Mumbai and at the Bombay Stock Exchange. This summit represents a crucial juncture in a journey towards corporate responsibility. In a country as diverse and as dynamic as India, our approach to CSR must be both inclusive and innovative. I was talking to some of the speakers earlier today. What we need is to reimagine our CSR ESG initiatives, and what is required is not how companies can implement or set goals for CSR and SDGs, but how to make this the core of their business strategies. As we look at this summit, one of the quotes that comes to mind of Abraham Lincoln, where he quotes that you cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today. I believe this is the cornerstone of impactful CSR implementation. With so much developments in technology and so much rapid changes coming in the climate change, I think it's a wake-up call for all of us. And it's time that all of us come together and start making the moves today. As Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change in the world. And that is what I think this summit is all about. India's path to sustainable development is very critical, not just to us, but to the whole world. And to align CSR with ESG, the environment, social and governance principles, means the intertwining of our age-old values of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one family, one world, one future. And this has to be with modern business practices. A commitment is not just to the stakeholders, but to every citizen and the environmental which we cherish. As the world is grappling with the climate changes, ESG is not just a parameter, but it's a compass directing us towards responsible and ethical practices. How we align this compass with our sustainability goals will define the impact that we make with the world around us. Vishal did mention Harvard, so I will just go back to our last interaction with our faculties, where many of the corporates were thinking of ESG as a cost. However, in fact, it's the other way around. With the implementation of ESG, it also gives all your stakeholders the signal that how you can run your business efficiently and sustainably. So as we move ahead, as India transcends beyond more of just corporate philanthropy, I think it has to become into a strategic imperative. The question we pose today is now not how CSR fits into our business, but how businesses can evolve to embed CSR into our core activities. As we build effective CSR leadership, it means that we have to embrace the diversity of our challenges and the creativity of our solutions. As we navigate potential barriers and the wisdom drawn from a rich heritage and best practices we have developed, our leadership is not about implementing projects, it's about inspiring change. And we at ASM have tried to make this a core where we are trying to create a young breed of youth who can contribute not only to the corporates but to the all levels of the society. I think what is required is a very close interaction between the corporates and the academic institutions. And in fact, I'm very happy to announce here that during the last summit in Delhi, we had announced that we'll be making CSR a compulsory internship of 2 weeks for all our students. And I'm very happy to let you know that we have done this, and we did not announce it last time, but we have already implemented it. So we look forward to the support of the corporates, and we can always support your initiative. I think while the corporates have wonderful goals and probably financial resources, institutions like us have the time and the human resources available to implement this. So I think by involving the students at a young age into these activities will go a long way in instilling the right kind of mindset into them as well. At Nextgeninnov8, we are very passionate about promoting the innovation and entrepreneurial mindset. We are focusing on social entrepreneurship as well. With our partnerships with Harvard Students Association, we are bringing in the courses which are best in the world to our students in Asia. And we are trying to promote social innovation and SDG goals, not only just for the corporates through our other tie-ups, but we are focusing on children right from the age of 13. We have partnered with Babson, one of the best colleges in the world for entrepreneurship, and we are also focusing on the problems of family businesses within India. 83% of our businesses in India are family businesses, and they have different challenges. So that's one of the initiatives at NextGen. And we believe that technology is going to play a very, very crucial role in our journey for CSR or SDGs or ESG implementation. And I'm very happy to tell you here that we have launched a tool called as Brain Pulse. Now this is a quizzing platform, a competition platform to give defined learning outcomes to the audience as such. So, at NextGen, we are also trying to see how we can bring in some technological interventions which can be used by the corporates and education institutions to promote our awareness as well as make sure that these learnings are got into the right minds in a gamified and a fun-loving way. So this summit is more than an event. I think, it's more like a movement. As we delve into today's agenda, let us pledge to make this summit a starting point for new collaborations and deeper commitments. Let us use these discussions as a catalyst for impactful change, guided by a shared vision for better India. Thank you so much for your dedication in making a difference and for joining hands with us in this noble endeavor for shaping a responsible and a sustainable future. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me promise you the most powerful 8 minutes of the day by introducing our mentor and chairman of InnoServe Group, Mr. Gopal Krishnan Ramachandran.
Good morning, friends, and I think let me tell you all that yes, CSR as a subject fascinates me. Normally, we talk about CSR as something where we are donating funds. Or we talk about CSR as charity. But then, as Sandeep rightly pointed out, can we be talking about social entrepreneurship in the best possible fashion? The answer is a categorical yes. And if we are talking about CSR, in one line it stands for a self-regulated business model. I look at CSR as a business model aimed at alleviation of poverty, uplift of the downtrodden, and making the country an economic superpower. If that is not CSR, then we are treading the wrong path. And I have experts here who will join, hopefully bring off mine. The idea about CSR sometimes seems to be confusing, not only to individuals like you and me, but it confuses even the corporates and the conglomerates who propose CSR. And I'm telling it with great amount of understanding and thought through deliberation and an informed debate by which I have come to this conclusion that sometimes we say that we want to do CSR, it's been mandated, it's compulsory, and we have to use a certain percentage of profits, maybe 1%, 3%, whatever it is of the net profit, depending on how big the conglomerate or the multinational is. What happens? The biggest problem we have is, and it's not meant to be commenting on anyone in particular, funds are transferred to a trust. We talk about a percentage of profits having been put into a trust. Unfortunately, the trust, in the eyes of the public, seems to be governed by the same institution. And then the question arises, is CSR taking place? Now, this may be a very touchy subject, and I love to have a debate on a touchy subject. We want the country to be doing well. Point taken. We want the country to progress. Better still. But goodness me, when we have charitable trusts and organizations and foundations which are supposed to be having the funds to deliver the CSR objectives, sometimes, more often than not, we tend to feel, are we falling short of the goals that we have set for ourselves? We have CSR organizations and foundations headed by phenomenally good professionals. And some of them, I have the good fortune of sharing the desk today. And they are sitting on the desk. They'll be the next speakers around. Having said that, what is CSR supposed to do? When I say that it's supposed to be a self-regulating business model, does it sound contradictory? Is CSR and business model not going hand in hand? Sandeep mentioned about social entrepreneurship. CSR, social entrepreneurship, viable economic business model. Can it happen? Ladies and gentlemen, would you like to say a yes or no to it? Any voices? And I think, to my mind, although the voice was feeble, I'm so happy that it comes from some here. To my mind, CSR has to be a movement. It has to be a revolution, an idea whose time has already come. And India has to progress, in particular. And we don't have to have people say that this country is a poor country. You know what is the astonishing part of the entire story of India? We have unicorns being built up. 180 unicorns in the last 5 years in a startup scenario. Next only to US and China. I can't talk about China right now. I don't know the numbers, whether they are true or not true. And the number of billionaires increasing every year exponentially. The number of wealthy increasing. 1 or 2% of the population is the most wealthiest, not in India, even in the world. And a huge portion of the population of 140 crore below poverty line or treading poverty line. That's a stark contrast that we are facing. And no country is more better positioned. When I see this stark contrast, I see an opportunity. An opportunity to deliver through the CSR business model. I keep on emphasizing CSR is a business model. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very important for all of us, whether we work in the corporates or in the NGOs or in foundations, to understand very clearly CSR cannot be construed as a charitable activity. What are the founding pillars of corporate social responsibility or corporate citizenship, as I'd like to call it? CSR should be a corporate citizenship. If that's what we want to call it, there are 4 pillars on which a CSR runs. 1, it has to be based on something known as environmental responsibility. The second one has to be on ethical responsibility. The third would be philanthropic responsibility. And last but not the least, all these 3 pillars need to be backed by what I term as the most important ingredient known as financial responsibility. These are the pillars of CSR. And if we talk about something known as environmental responsibility, it's the duty of every citizen of the country to ensure that pollution, global warming, in all these areas, we ensure that we reduce the emission. We ensure that the nature is not actually destroyed. What I mean by nature is the afforestation that is taking place when we are uprooting the trees, when nature is being actually destroyed, and when we use toxic substances like plastic. We need to be moving over to say that environmental destruction is not going to be in our DNA. And whatever we do, we need to ensure that it's going to be done in a manner in which environmental responsibility is taken by each one of us. It's easier said than done. Sometimes we do have great feelings of doing it, but the execution leaves much to be desired. But then, someone has to stop. And when we took this responsibility of saying that we'll have CSR summits, the idea was at least we'll form a vehicle through which we convey the message that CSR has to be very, very critical. When we talk about ethical responsibilities, ethics just sums up as fairness in whatever we do. Fair and just. To me, that is an ethical display. If we are having ethical responsibility and initiate CSR programs towards educating people towards ethics, I always believe in one word, one sentence, there is no economics without ethics. And if I were to say that there is no economics without ethics, and if you want to become economically strong, trust me, CSR plays more than a big role. It becomes the heart of the organization. When we say that we'll be into philanthropic endeavors is something which we love to talk about. But does it result in actually the people who need the knowledge getting the knowledge and getting reskilled, upskilled, unlearned, relearned, and contributing to the society as a whole? That's when philanthropy has played a major. And if we have done that, we have succeeded. Now, having said all this, is there a financial responsibility? Because whenever it is CSR, somehow or the other there is an image in our minds that yes, it has to be just on the amounts that we spend, no matter what is the input-output matrix, what is the desired outcome taking place. If it is not, it's okay, we made the donation. Charity is being done. No. No one wants here self-pity. No one wants here pity. No one wants charity. If everybody is taught and everybody is made employable and valuable and we create value, CSR has delivered. In return, the society will deliver back to us. First we become givers. The people who become the takers then become the givers. And that's the loop that has to run. And that's how CSR functions without losing its identity, becoming a major fulcrum in which the organization functions. Are we saying that when we do CSR, the company doesn't prosper? Of course, it does prosper. I am amused at times that when people do CSR activities, especially the corporates, it could be the conglomerates in India or the multinationals in India, even if you see a TV ad, they say in the public interest. And they want to advertise from the rooftop that we are doing a CSR activity. Is there a need? In my opinion, no. We all know, we continue to know, and we shall, even in this age of internet, AI, chat GPT, Google, and whatnot, one brand of advertisement that's never going to fail for now and forever is going to be word of mouth. Word of mouth is going to be there, and if CSR is done without publicizing, and if the world comes to know that these guys do something very different, that catches like wildfire. That is what I call as viral of the good old days, instead of the viral artificial likes that catch up and we say, oh, it's gone viral. I see the internet saying that we are viral. I'm not so sure. But when people say that this foundation laid my foundation, I think that's going viral. That's to me CSR. And having said that, if CSR is done the right way around, we have seen some of the brands having their valuations gallop. I need not actually elucidate that point, because if you look at some of the companies, even in India, where it was said that these foundations have contributed so much, automatically, and if it had had the desired effect, what we have seen is the brand recognition, the brand value, the brand recall, all because of one common theme, CSR, has catapulted to the top. You take even the Fortune 500 companies from Starbucks to Berkshire Hathaway to JP Morgan to in India, Infosys and others, you see only one common thread. We say that the foundation has done so much, it has helped so many people, the people are indebted to this foundation, automatically they feel that the company has to be good and they get the best talent. They attract the best talent, they retain the best talent, they have the best productivity, and naturally, because of CSR, they become blue chip companies, not only in the mind of people who want to be part of that company as an employee, but blue chip companies in the mind of investors. So, what does CSR do? CSR creates value, and organizations get valuation. And if this is not wealth creation, ladies and gentlemen, I'd be doubting what could be a better wealth creation. All that I can tell you is today is going to be a fun-filled day in terms of understanding what CSR is all about, how we take it, diversity, equity, removing inequality, and ensuring inclusion is there. The D, E, and I come into play as a result of CSR. I feel is what is going to be the game changer in today's topics, and the speakers we have is a fascinating roster of speakers. Please don't miss the action, and all the best for a wonderful day ahead. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
I would like to present Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, CEO of Anil Agarwal Foundation.
It's often said that there are some acts which are difficult to follow. When we hear Gopal, I would say there are some acts which are impossible to follow. Anything that follows Gopal is a very, very difficult task, absolutely. And so hats off to you for giving us such a really blistering speech in which you made some very thought-provoking comments, and which I will definitely look at much more closely as we tread the journey of CSR. We also heard very thoughtful comments from Rahul and Sandeep, if I may address you by your first names. And I think the audience here today, thanks to the organizers of this event, is going to listen to some very incredible perspectives on what has become, in my opinion, a segment of our economy. It has become an industry vertical, something that when I wrote the law, I had no idea about. Fast forward backwards and cast your minds back to 2011-12, when we were actually drafting the law. When CSR was an acronym, that was more like, okay, maybe I've heard of it, maybe I haven't, what does it involve? There were companies who were doing it in any case. And many questions arose as to why we should have a legislation on CSR. In fact, the primary objection of corporates was this: that if so many of us are already doing it, it's already in the Indian ethos, then why have a legislation? Today, those very corporates are so happy to espouse the legislation, feel empowered because of that legislation, and to say that we have moved away from which Gopal rightly said, checkbook charity, intermittent feel good, to what we now know as strategic CSR, which again, in Gopal's words, create value, acquire validation. It is today also a business model, because when you do CSR and you do it well, the perception of society and every sector of society vis-a-vis you is high value. You raise the level of perception. If you do it well and you do it ethically, you do it with the good of the deprived in your heart and in your soul, you acquire an aura about your company, an aura about your leadership that radiates and permeates across every level. It is that feeling of being true to the development agenda of this nation that must inspire the leadership of those who are in the CSR segment. When that happens, you really ring bells, bells that echo across the nation. I was reflecting today on what I should say, and one or two thoughts came to mind which I think should be at the centrality of all our thought processes with respect to CSR and now, of course, ESG. And let me say one CSR which in one country alone, how many countries do we have? 192, I think the United Nations last told us. Out of 192 nations, my young friends, we have one nation which has a CSR law. Can you tell me a second nation? Can any one of you tell me a second nation which has actually passed a law which is virtually the same as India, but reduced the percentage of profit from 2 to 1? You would be hard put to do that. But if I were not in Kathmandu 1 week ago, I would never have known that the Nepal legislature has passed an act which is virtually the same as India in every respect, except that maybe under corporate pressure, they reduced 2% to 1%. So our friendly neighbor has also set the path. So we have CSR as a law in India. Therefore, it is mandatory. What is the second tool that we in India have, which is ESG? Is it mandatory? No. But because the world has adopted it, the United Nations has adopted it, it is pretty much what we also are doing and need to do. And what is of tremendous help is most corporate entities are not getting into setting up a CSR vertical and another parallel ESG vertical. Most corporates are finding it so much full of synergy, so completely bonded to each other, that CSR and ESG are mostly in the same vertical because they fit so seamlessly into each other. So what has India got? An Indian tool made for India in India, and an international tool, ESG. And because we are fortunate to have two such incredible tools, what we will do for the development of our nation, for the marginalized, will become the benchmark against which every single country is going to compare itself. That's the vision which you have, Gopal, and that's the same vision which I too have and wish to share. Today, as we stand at the crossroads, and you are having this event at a very momentous time, Sandeep, and that is because on the 1st of April 2024, we shall celebrate a whole decade of CSR. And what warms the cockles of my heart is to see young folk who are starting their careers in CSR. It energizes me every day that I've inspired generations of people to take CSR as a vocation, to make it their passion in life, to invest their lifetimes in doing good for the community, which many were doing, but was never recognized as a profession. Today you are actually doing good for the community as your profession. And that to me is really something incredible that CSR has contributed. Number two, I scoured every single word written on CSR anywhere in the world for 4 entire months before we wrote the CSR legislation. It was important for us to know everything before we write legislation for the nation. And there were a couple of points which we introduced specifically for our country, for our nation, because we were writing the law for India. We had to Indianize the spectrum of CSR, the global spectrum of CSR. And apart from the fact that there were two important elements that the world had never seen before, one of course is what we call POP, not plaster of Paris, but percentage of profit. Unknown to the world. For the first time we delivered in India the 2% law. And second, never again done, we introduced the fact that actual execution of CSR on the ground, in the field, deep in the communities, deep in the heart of our nation, would be done by civil society, by NGOs. And we looked at CSR as a triangle. Government at the apex, regulatory and facilitating, and at the two ends of the base, corporates, funding, monitoring, evaluating, but at the other end of the base, civil society, staying and working within communities to deliver what CSR is about, to be there where the change is about to happen. And in the triangle, or the triumvirate as I prefer to call it, we have the unique model of CSR in India, never conceived, never thought about. Because we have that, we have so many amongst you who in the civil society sector have made such an incredible name and found empowerment in the law. So vocation, profession, and think about the beneficiaries. How many beneficiaries we have touched in these 10 years. How their lives have changed completely. The instrument of the law has allowed that to happen. So we have beneficiaries, we have professions, we have NGOs and civil society sector. The last point I'd like to make is, we made CSR into a board level activity. There's a famous Chatterjeeism which is called from backroom to boardroom. We brought CSR as something that we also do to boardroom decision making. The law says you must have a CSR committee of the board. And because the best minds of the company are in the board, the power center of the company is in the board, and because CSR decision making happens within the board, it transmits across the entire corporate from the top leadership to the bottom. And in that we find strength, ability, empowerment to do what we want to do for those who are far less deprived and marginalized. It is these elements that bring to CSR the tremendous amount of traction that it has got. We began with about 9,000 or 10,000 companies. We now have 18,000 companies. We've doubled the number in a decade. We began with an investment of 12,000 crores. Today it is 26,000 crores, more than double. And all this has happened because the idea of CSR, once implanted, when we germinated that seed, the tree that it has grown into and blossomed into is something to stand and admire and watch. And I said that that is the contribution that we have made as a nation. So thank you everybody for giving me this opportunity to be here with you today. Thank you to the organizers. I wish you all the very best for the rest of the day. Thank you.